Hello and welcome to WashingtonExec's video series. I'm senior reporter Rachel Kirkland, and I have the pleasure of introducing Mary Abbajay. She is the author of the best-selling book, Managing Up: How to Move Up, Win at Work, and Succeed with Any Type of Boss. She is also the president of Careerstone Group, LLC, which provides talent and organizational development solutions to business and government. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It's a delight to be here.
Absolutely. So today we're discussing your work and how it relates to government contracting today. So in the introduction to your book, you talk about how there are tens of thousands of management books, but the F word led you to write something from a different perspective. Tell me about that.
I love that. Yeah. So the F word, the F word, just so everybody knows right from the start, stands for the word follower or followership. And it's really funny because I've probably spoken to hundreds of thousands of people at this point. And I always say in my speeches, can anyone tell me what I mean by the F word? And they all say things like fear, you're fired, feedback. And I'm like, no, it's follower. Here's the thing. We spend $85 billion with a B dollars a year on leadership development. Yet, the number one reason why people leave their jobs is because they have a bad boss or a boss that's hard for them to work with. So I've decided to write a book for followers around how you can manage one of the most important relationships in your workplace, which is the ones that you have with your boss. And the truth is, America doesn't like to think of themselves as followers. Like, it makes us feel kind of sick in the stomach or throw up a little bit in our mouth. But the truth is, most of us spend most of our time executing on other people's vision than creating the vision ourselves. And so we have to learn how to understand the duality of leader and follower. Both sides have a role. And so I'm really hoping people do is to understand, like, as a follower, it doesn't mean you're a patsy. It doesn't mean you're a pansy. You still have agency. It's a relationship. And so the more we can understand our roles as leaders and followers, the better off that we can find success for us, for our bosses, for our people, for our colleagues, and for our organization.
Now, in the book, you offer some insights into how to manage your manager. So a significant percentage of the workforce right now is continuing to work from home, or at least some of the time work from home. Can you talk about how remote work or hybrid remote work can impact employees' ability to deal with a difficult boss?
Yeah. So I want to separate like difficult boss for a moment from regular boss. So let's say your boss is pretty normal or pretty easy most of the time. When we go into a remote or a hybrid situation, I do want you to pay attention to how their management style becomes different, because not very many managers were actually that adept at remote management in the first place before the pandemic. And very few managers have been trained into how to do a hybrid management. So I want you to pay attention for how the style of your boss shifts, their communication style, their collaboration styles, their needs, their wants, their preferences. Now, when you have a difficult boss, what we're finding is two things may happen. One, your difficult boss may actually become easier for you to handle because you're not seeing them every day. So that distance, that space could make it a little bit easier for you to navigate and build that relationship. However, some difficult bosses become more difficult. The pandemic, the remote, the hybrid is going to exacerbate their poor management tendencies. So a micromanager who was micromanaging before the pandemic may be completely off the charts with their controlliness during a remote or hybrid. So you really have to stay tuned and be open to adapting and flexing based on how your managerial style, your manager style is going to shift during the pandemic, and come up with basically all new strategies to handle that person during this time.
That's an interesting perspective. I want to pivot to government contracting. What insights do you offer in managing up that you feel like are especially relevant to those in government contracting?
Well, I love this question because I would say before I wrote the book, we had a workshop on managing up, and our predominant client base for the workshop was government agencies and government contractors. So I think it's really important for a couple of reasons. One, whether you're a government contractor who is a person on site, like you are working for basically the agency, or whether you are consulting to the agency, the truth is you're now going to have two bosses, right? You're going to have two two masters, as we say. One is the company that hires you, right? And secondly is the agency with whom you are working. So being able to manage up to different bosses at the same time is really, really relevant, I think, for government contractors, much more so, I think, than the private sector. The second thing I think that really comes to play with government contractors is that the government doesn't necessarily create really great managers. And this is true for the private sector as well, but I think it bears more truth in the government sector because we really promote people based on their technical ability to do their job and not so much on their ability to be a good manager or a good leader, right? You're really good at something. So now you're going to be, now you're going to be the boss or the manager. And then in the government, one of the big challenges is that there's not a lot of room to grow your career unless you go into supervising or managing. There's not a lot, there might be a fair amount of non-supervisory GS-13s, but once you get to a 14 or 15, you're going to be supervising people even when you don't want to. So that means if you're a government contractor, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have a spectrum of ability of the managers that you are dealing with. So you better learn how to manage up because that relationship is going to be really important for your success so that you can be successful, they can be successful, and of course the organizations can both be successful.
Excellent points. Now, you wear a lot of hats. What's next for you?
Oh gosh, you know what? I think I'm going to, hopefully what's next for me will be back in person with people. But I think, I really want to start focusing on how to really deal with toxic bosses and how to deal with toxic cultures. I think the pandemic has really highlighted this, and there's been a lot of media attention towards, they're famous toxic bosses, but I really want to get organizations to start realizing the danger and the damage that is created when they allow toxic bosses to remain. So I think that's going to be my next move, really digging into the toxic bosses.
Excellent. And where can people get your book and learn more about your services?
The book you can find anywhere that they sell books, like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or you can go to the website managingupthebook.com. You can find me and my company at careerstonegroup.com, or you can find me on Twitter at Mary Abbajay or LinkedIn at Mary Abbajay, or you can follow my podcast, Cubicle Confidential. I'm pretty easy to find.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your work. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Have a great day.
You too.